Apple has been in negotiations with content providers for quite some time, and there was a lot of anticipation that Apple TV would be live, or the television service would be live this year. Why now a 2016 situation?
Yeah, I mean, Apple had been planning on introducing a TV service sometime this fall. It would cost about $40, or about half the cost of your typical cable TV subscription. And they've been talking to pretty much all the major programmers at this point. And part of the biggest sticking point at this point is cost. Basically, Apple wants to, create a service that costs about $40, and they want to include as many channels as they can. But the programmers, obviously, they want to get, a fair value for their channels as well. So it seems like that's the major sticking point that slowed down negotiations.
It's harder and harder to draw a difference between an Apple Live TV service and the Apple TV box. Dan, I use the Apple TV box for all of my television viewing because more and more channels you can watch baseball on it, you can watch HBO on it, Bloomberg is on Apple TV. So as they add more and more content providers, what's the need for any kind of live television service?
Well, that's really what this is about. In terms of cord cutting, that's why this is a big step for Apple in terms of going to the live streaming. We still think it comes out early 2016. I think the delay is a slight negative, but this is really the broader vision for Apple as they penetrate further into the consumer landscape on streaming, on wearables, and I still think we're going to get there. And this is really about negotiation, pricing, and rather than get it right the first time, you'll never have a second chance to make a first impression. I think this could be a seminal event as they move into streaming TV.
Do you think that Apple has the potential, Dan, to I hate to use the term, but I'm going to use it, disrupt the television industry the way that Apple Pay is disrupting the payments industry?
I mean, we view it could have an earthquake-like impact, to the industry, and that's why there's a lot of fear of what they could do, just given their presence to billion iOS devices sold to date. So there's a lot of eyes on this, not just for Apple, but across the industry, as what this cord-cutting service could really do. And that's why they're putting a lot of focus. They've been working on this 5-6 years. I think now we're within a few months of it happening, but it looks like early 2016 rather than late fall, because there was thoughts they were going to announce it September 9th, along with the 6S. Now that moved later this year.
Hasn't the traditional television industry already been disrupted? I mean, hasn't this happened? I never watch, Gerry, I'll put this question to you. I never watch cable television anymore. I watch literally everything on Apple TV or on my Xbox or whatever, as do most people, right?
Right. I mean, you're not alone in that.
Well, no. Most young people, I guess, who have access to these kind of things.
Right. I mean, we've been talking about cord cutting happening for a while, but this past quarter, the pay TV providers lost more subscribers in the second quarter of this year than ever before. That was a report that just came out yesterday. So, I mean, last week we saw this big sell-off in media stocks about, investors are concerned about cord cutting, but, it is accelerating. I mean, there is evidence. There's still 100 million people who still pay for this, pricey, big bundle of hundreds of channels, but, there's more and more people who can find pretty much all they need on TV from, Netflix and Amazon and Hulu. And if you're a TV programmer, I mean, the big thing is if you have sports or a hit show that people can't live without, you're in a good position when you're negotiating with Apple.
That's where the real money is. Dan, quickly before we run, we've been talking about cord cutting and unbundling as a real possibility for at least a couple of years already. Is what Gerry just mentioned, the sell-off in media stocks, an obstacle for Apple? Because all of a sudden, companies like Disney and 21st Century Fox and CBS have to be recognizing that this now presents a real risk for their companies and their ability to generate earnings and revenue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it's more competitive. And also, it's get to add their bread and butter, which is really hardware and on the iPhone. So I think it's a little bit more of an uphill battle, but it does speak to some of the more headwinds they have in competition as they move in there. But it's a heavy weight, and I think a lot of focus on what the next step is.